Hello there, folks. I would like to talk about some hints I have about learning a foreign language. Of course, I learned Japanese and I studied also Chinese. But I highly recommend that when you're starting a new language, that you seek out a teacher, either online or elsewhere, that has learned the language, is a native English speaker, has learned the language, and can explain it to you in plain English. Now, particularly since my stroke, my speaking skills are not that great, and I can't come up with words that quickly. But, anyways, I had a couple stories about that. Um, when I was learning Japanese, I was first taught by returned missionaries who had learned the language as a second language, right? And granted, not everything they tell you is accurate, but the big picture is so helpful, and it's so helpful to be able to learn language from somebody who speaks your own language and knows what it is like to have struggled and overcome that. And I'll just give one little story about that. In Japanese, they have the particles or noun markers. There's wa and there's ga when you subject markers to identify the subject. And in actuality, once you learn, you get good at Japanese, you learn that there are some rules about how these are used, and it's just not random. But our teacher taught us, he said, don't worry about that now. He says, he had a thing called arrow on a wheel, and wa ga wa ga wa ga wa ga wa ga all over. If you're ever in doubt, spin the wheel of he called it his wagometer, and and that wasn't accurate, but it was sufficient for people who were just learning Japanese and didn't need to get into the technicalities of which one to use. A Japanese person would understand you if you would still understand you if you use the wrong particle, right? It's not the end of the world. Um, Ga is always used with the who, what, when, where, wow, who, what, when, where, why words. Always ga. Nani ga, dare ga, doko ga. Um, and wa is used when you first introduce a subject out of the blue. It kind of means as for this person, blah 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 blah. And once you've introduced that subject, every time you use it again, it becomes ga usually, right? Um, if you're just learning Japanese, I don't expect you to understand that now. But so it wasn't. It was wrong information, technically. Um, but it sufficed for us as we were embarking on Japan, and we learned, the higher laws on the ground in Japan. And then when I was in college, after I learned Japanese, I came back to college, and I jumped into a second year Chinese class. And by contrast, we had a native speaking Chinese teacher teaching us Chinese, right? And oh my gosh, it was, bless her heart, um, she's not a native speaker in English. I don't remember her ever explaining to my satisfaction any rules of grammar um, in Chinese that make much sense to me as a person that was just starting to learn Chinese. Oh my heavens! I would have much rather much rather had a native English speaker who had learned it themselves and got started from zero and gone through the process, and they could explain it so much better. Bless her heart, she did her best. But anyway. So word to the wise: if you're beginning in a language, I would seek out a native English speaker who can explain it to you. And then once you get good at it or better at it, then maybe switch to a native speaker. But oh my heavens, I uh, I learned the hard way. Anyways, that's my talk for tonight. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more talks. I might even give them some other talks tonight. Thank you. Bye bye.